Hi, Maya and Julianne. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you, Britt. Thank you.
I
Thank
can
you.
hear you, Brett. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Virginia Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled City Council Committee of the Whole meeting. We'll call this meeting to order today's date is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, Election Day. The time is 9:02 a.m. We have a full agenda today. We have some speakers available, and on the phone we have Councilor Paulson and Councilor Beyondich. And is there anybody participating in Zoom today? Okay, thank you. And we have sitting in on behalf of our city clerk, who is busy at the polling booth, we have Chris Mirafiordi from our legal office, administrative offices. So, and she'll be taking the notes today. So I will turn this part of the meeting over to our city administrator for the agenda, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Chris Clark regarding mobile soft inspection and permitting software.
Chris Clark, our fire marshal. Welcome, Chris. Just turn the light on there and welcome again. How you want to turn that light on there?
There it is.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, good morning. We were tasked with some CARES money to look for some software for our revamping of the building officials' office, as well as some software that will bridge the fire marshal's office and our inspection programs together. So we've been looking for some time for some software. There just isn't that magical item out there, so we've been looking. We found a program called Mobilize. It gives us 3 different portions to that. There's an inspector, a fire inspector, and then there's a responder. That'll give us abilities to take our information, put it into basically one house to store all of our information. We can use it for pre-planning. We can take that information as well with apps, or our responders can actually pull up building information, hazardous information, contact information for that building, and we can share that with our police department as well. On the inspection side, if the building official does something or I do something, we can get that all tracked into one place. It allows us to do invoicing, as well as contractors can basically submit their stuff online, and they have their own type of a PayPal deal where it's $2.50 for them to submit their plans or permits online, and no cost to the city. It's the contractor pays that direct to the web host for that, and they're able to submit and make things a little more streamlined. So I believe you have that in your packet for the cost of $20,950 for this program. That'll give us all the codes and so forth, so we can better do our inspections and have some more cohesion between those offices. So I'm asking for permission to purchase that today from the council and answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Fire Marshal Clark. I have a couple of questions for clarification purposes for myself, maybe the council, and those who are listening at home and sitting in the audience. First, is this an ongoing cost on an annual basis? You have a primary cost associated with the with this computer software. Is this an annual cost that will have to be absorbed in your budget in the future, or is this a one-time cost associated that with upgrades periodically?
The $20,950 will be the initial setup for everything and the codes, and then for the continuation on an annual basis from that point is $8,611 per year to maintain that, and that's purchase of their software and maintaining their software, as well as keeping up with the current code cycles through the group that we use. So that would most likely be a split budget between building and fire.
So it would be between the code department and fire, not police.
Correct.
If the police goes on there with the rental code, it would be funded either through the rental code or
Okay.
divided among the 3 departments.
Okay, and I find that we've been considering a lot of these new upgrades with an unfunded mandate with the initial setup fee using CARES Act money, but the ongoing cost is an item that has to be absorbed in the budget. We've had several of these come before the council before. I'm not saying I don't to support that. I think it's important us have that. So I think that's something to consider as moving forward, an $8,600 a year. So my second question, and I have 3 of them, this is the second of 3 questions, is that have you tested this software? Have you contacted other entities that use this software to determine if this is adequate to accomplish your needs are for initially and in the future?
For the type of software we've been looking at to marriage the building side and the fire side, that's very limited. Otherwise, everything's very specific and very costly for those types of programs. So yes, we have talked to other users out in the area throughout the state and outside of the state, and those that are using it have been happy, and it's been the best package that we looked at out of 4. And what we currently use to be 5, this is the best thing that we find that can interact and exchange that information amongst the departments.
So this is commonly used software throughout the state and beyond.
The state has been limited, and they're just a new market where some others have not used it, but there's other states that are using it, and been in contact with those users, and they've been happy with what they've seen.
So have you spoken to some of the larger cities in Minnesota to see, Duluth has that, rental code, and they have all, how do they, what kind of software programs do they use? They use this program, do they use an internal program?
They use some internal
Okay.
programs there. So other users in some similar systems, this is very comparable to others, but gives us that building intergrade between the fire and the building.
So then it leads to my last question before we move on to the rest of the council. My last question would be, so we have a new IT contractor, Pantheon, right? And so is this a compatible software package with our computerized systems? Is this a standalone separate from that? And if so, is there an integration cost or an integration part of this computerized access system that's going to be an ongoing expense for us, or do we have to buy additional equipment or additional hardware to accommodate the software packages that you're asking for us to contribute to today?
No, the world has changed quite drastically. So the software is mostly cloud-based.
Okay, mostly cloud-based,
And
very
we
good.
do have plenty of room on our servers that we just purchased to run the background program that runs this information.
Okay, thank you.
That's the advantage that we did, and one of the things we did find with COVID is that we needed to change the ways we deliver our services, including having ways that people can do it mobily, and that our staff can take photos mobily while they're out there. People can submit photos to us. It really made us jump into the 20th century, which is one good positive with COVID.
And I understand that, and I think the key to this entire conversation from my perspective is that there are some entities, and I didn't speak with after reviewing the proposal here prior to this meeting about the internal steps that some like Duluth are taking to do this internally without this cost. And so, do we have, if we had that capability or not? I'm sure we don't, because that research would have already been done. Our senior Mr. shaking her head no. So this is an ongoing cost. I still am concerned about the cost, even if it's cost sharing. This is unfunded mandates, even though we're using CARES Act funding to do that. It's necessary as we move forward to bring the city forward into compliance with not only our property maintenance preservation code that went into effect in January of 2017, just another step moving forward as we incorporate the new rental code in the near future. And with your inspection program, I know that we've had a lot of those. So thanks, Fire Marshal Clark, for coming in. I'll turn this mic over to Councilor Johnson for further discussion, and then we'll go on to the phones and see if Councilor Beyondich or Councilor Paulson has any questions. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for coming in, Chris, sorry. What is the what kind of time saving is this going to provide for you and the other staff? You had mentioned that folks can go online and do all the processing part electronically. So what are our time savings on this?
I think the time savings is going to come into the ability that between whatever inspectors are out there, so blight and those types of things, it's going to save us a lot of going back to the office, checking things. We can pull some of that up right away online in the field to compare if we have a correction order or we need to verify something. As those plans come up, those will be web-based, so that's just going to be a time submission, but it's also going to keep us more organized, I think, from what we have now. So between our Laserfish that we have, the other record managements that we're using, and then where our invoicing and so forth is originating out of several different offices, this will give us that ability to pool that into one central location to be able to manage all of that. So whether it's blight, whether it's a fire correction order, whether it's a building inspection issue, and then again, the pre-planning side, which for the fire department, we can pull up to a structure fire, pull up some plans of that building, are familiar with that, if there's hazards, electrical shut-offs, those types of things, and key holder information. So we can kind of put all that information, have a central zone to pull that versus what we're doing now. So it's gonna make us more efficient. If we
Perfect.
do that.
And do we have the tablet-based component at this time, or will that need to be purchased? I'm looking at the first, where it's called Mobilize Inspector Mobile Software, tablet-based, component-based, web-based admin reporting. Will that be, I'm just curious.
That'll give us, so whether we have tablets or some computer form, we'll be able to do that through laptops. And
Okay, so we
those-
don't have that already. And then my final question is, so Britt gets a lot of questions. Will she have access, her and Sherry have access to this? So if someone calls with a question about billing or something that it doesn't have to go to you, it can be solved by somebody else?
Our hopes would be that would go into, yes, they could probably have access to that, and then if we have however this restructuring goes within the engineering department, with that administrative person, that they would kind of be that central hub to be able to.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
And just one more quick question, then a follow-up to what Counselor Johnson has asked. So who is going to manage the system? Who's going to manage the input and export of that and manage, do we have an individual that's assigned to do that?
That would be our intent, to run that out of the engineering department through that
The
administrative.
code official, the code department, whatever
Official,
we're
yep.
going to call it. Okay, very good, thank you. Let's go to the phones first. Counselor Beyondich, do you have any questions for Fire Marshal Clark?
Thank you. Yes. Could you just summarize that last conversation? It didn't come through, so I didn't hear a lot of what you were saying. Thank you.
Yes, so we would just be streamlining the department and the ability through our laptops or our web-based, whether it's a laptop or a mobile product, to be able to streamline our information sharing and availability. So yes, it would make it more conducive for us to have this program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just hop back into the agenda. So yeah, it was a little difficult to hear, but what I'm understanding is that this is extremely compatible in terms of permitting, in terms of inspection, and then folks can basically upload documents. Chris, is there like a document center per case, and it's kind of going to be all a one-stop shop?
Yes, that's the intent, is to get us more streamlined so we're a one-stop shop, and then between our divisions we can have that information more available and more efficient, as in scheduling or rescheduling inspections and so forth.
Okay, so like in terms of an integration with, say, a building code official or whatever that's going to be called, would it be just required then for like another user license to be able to access that, since it is there only one user license on this contract?
The license, based on some of the codes in that, are split, and those are all included within the quote. And we've planned for 5, so that gives us the amount that we need for right now for our operations.
Got it. Okay, so it's up to 5 right now. Okay, so, and I think the mayor just kind of asked some of the questions that I originally had. And one other question that I have, is this an unfunded mandate, or is this just something that's going to help us kind of bridge through the new code and then also the new position?
This is going to be an upgrade to bring us into some better software to streamline our department. So it's unfunded, but it's something that we need to upgrade to move forward to handle our inspection loads and our other diversities that are tasked upon us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Freely.
From what it seems timely and reasonable to acquire and integrate this type of technology, given the current circumstances in the world that's limiting our ability to even get out in the field and have face-to-face contact with all the tasks that you have at hand. So, and I think too that it's timely because of the continuing talks for shared services. We may in fact be able to share costs with a local fire department as well. So I'm in favor of moving forward with this.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Bearable.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Chris, I've got a couple questions here. First of all, taking a look at the training classes and stuff and the expense of, for all those training classes. Now, is that total for the number of people you're going to train, or is that per individual, the cost of that?
Well, that's inclusive for all the people.
That's
we
inclusive
train.
for all, okay.
Correct.
Are they coming here, or do we have to go there?
No, they'll come here.
Okay, so there's no travel costs for us then?
Nope.
But I see in the bottom line, there might be travel costs for them. Is that correct? They don't state it, but it says travel-related and expenses. They list a bunch of things, and I believe are those their costs or not? Are they
What was
coming here for
included,
nothing?
included all the training and their travel, from what I understand.
Is that what that is?
Yep.
Because I wasn't sure, because
was all
it's
inclusive.
blank there. So you're positive of that? Because otherwise it becomes another part of our budget,
Yep.
an increase in our budget.
Nope, that was my understanding.
That was my understanding as well.
Okay, thanks, Brett.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any travel costs included in that quote. If they want our business, they're going to come up here and that's going to be expense they should be bearing themselves. So I think that's a hidden cost from my perspective. I don't like it, but you need a software package, so. Counselor Johnson?
I will move that we authorize the purchase of the mobile inspection and permitting software using CARES funds.
All support.
Moved by Counselor Johnson to approve the request by the Fire Marshal Clark to move forward with the purchase of the software, supported by Counselor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion?
I've got one question.
Yes, go ahead, Counselor
Brett, do
Bearable.
we have enough time? Because we have to have all this CARES and COVID monies in by the 12th, right?
Yes,
You have time to do all this?
yes.
Okay.
This firm understands the CARES timeline and expects to get us an invoice.
And we have enough
immediately.
money left?
We do.
Okay, thank you.
This was one of the things that we had identified early on with COVID, that we really needed to look at updating our permit software and the way that Bill Cole, our building official, and Chris Clark, our fire marshal, work together so that they can log into one place and see who had contact last with that person. Have we gotten their plans? Have we been there yet? Oh, Chris has been there 3 times, Bill's been there twice. So we just have that integration. We need to really work on that without having to need the face-to-face component. It needs to be able to.
Yeah, thank you. Because of the timeline, you know, I'm going to also support this, but because of the timeline, you know, I don't want to send this thing back, you know, to talk about the travel costs and those kind of things, because it's covered under a CARES Act funding. It's not coming out of our regular budget. That money has to be spent by November the 15th. This is part of that process moving forward. So even though I disagree with some of the parts that are in the contract. It's being covered by the expenses that are afforded to us by the CARE Act's funding, so it's not adversely affecting our city budget. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward and support this as well. Any further discussion? Councilor
Thank you, Mayor.
Cardigan.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Bronzelli.
I think it's just another positive thing for our department. We've got a number one fire department here now, and this just is going to enhance it more. I support this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on your part, Councilor Beyondich?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I just would add that I'm actually in the process of doing integration software right now that's cloud-based in my business, and it's going to be extremely helpful, and I believe it will help truly streamline, like Britt is saying, when you can have different users each access and you all have a common point of contact. So yeah, I'm in full support of this because and if we go through an additional time with COVID and, just in the climate that we're in right now, it's just very helpful to have that remote access.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is pertains to Matt Reed's information. Matt Reed, our engineer of record, is here in the audience today. It was approved the professional services agreement with SEH for the Silver Lake Trail Improvement Project.
Morning, Matt.
Morning. In your packets there, so maybe just a quick snapshot of a background here. Britt applied for a $50,000 grant to the IRRB to get started on the Silver Lake Trail project. That's to help supplement the deficit on the LCCMR application. They ended up chopping the amount down. So anyway, we were awarded that grant, so that's great. And so we'd like to get started on that and do phase one in the spring, start working on phase one of Silver Lake Trail in the spring. And so the agreement in front of you is for us to get the plans and specifications ready for as much of the trail as we can get out of our total budget of around $100,000, right, Britt? I can answer any questions you might have on that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson, anything?
I was just going to move approving the professional service agreement with SEH.
Okay, Councilor Johnson moves to approve the professional service agreement with SEH for the Silver Lake Trail improvements.
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Bearable.
Matt, that's just the completion around the south side of the lake and the bridge and the east side of the lake, is that correct? Not the north and west side?
North and west side are for now done. It'll be the south side, the northeast side, and then there'll be a pier at some point.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
And once again, thanks to the LCCMR, for this. This has been, thanks, Britt, for all your hard work on that in that regard, and Matt for moving forward as quickly with this trails plan, because next year we're going to be doing the Silver Lake and the Bailey's Lake, so that entire trail system should be done by summer or fall, right? So thank you. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Welcome.
The next item on the agenda is also for Matt Reed. It's to approve the resolution for submission of application for an IRRR grant for the 10th Street South Infrastructure Project. We had received CDBG funding for this, and I did tell them we would not do any work until next year potentially. We also have ability to get IRRB funding for this project. Today with the resolution to supply for IRRR.
Very good. Thank you.
I don't have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, this is,
Mayor, also move that recommendation with the resolution for the grant request to the IRRB for 10th Street South. We've been looking at this as a combination for the public safety area too. So if we get it, that'll be perfect.
okay, it's been moved. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Johnson. So it's been moved and supported to approve the resolution for the submission of an application to the IRRR for a grant for the 10th Street South Infrastructure Project will not only affect that moving forward, it'll help us with our Fairview Public Safety Building as we're moving forward, and we'll be able to collate some of the funds that we get from CBDG with IRRB funding to help with this project. So it's a great partnership as it's been in the past. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Johnson?
I have a future question. I'm seeing that it looks like a cul-de-sac. Does our assessment policy address cul-de-sacs when it comes to how that's going to work? I would assume we're assessing because it's a street improvement.
We use CDBG funding, you cannot assess,
Yeah, we
Not
can't.
at all?
not at all.
Okay, thank you.
But when we applied to CDBG, we applied for just the block with the potential to add on the cul-de-sac.
Okay,
And that's how we're going to apply to IRRR again, the block with the
Block, and
potential,
the-
if things come in favorably, to do the cul-de-sac.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Yes, more discussion, Councillor Barnzelli?
Matt, I've been here a few years. Where's Railroad Avenue?
It's the block east of Second Avenue, First Avenue, Railroad
First
Avenue. It's
The old warehouse row,
right by Staber, by the old Staber Foundry.
where you used to work.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
The next one's Matt also. Review the proposal for the environmental Phase 1 site assessment for the proposed Public Safety Center building site.
And this environmental phase one, Matt, will begin with just the streets and the alleyways?
Yeah, well, they'll be able to look at the property as a whole. Any access that they need to the site will only be on the street and alleys, because obviously the city doesn't own all those properties yet.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Okay, what you got for me? Oh, okay,
Oh, we don't have anything for you. You have anything for us?
okay.
Matt?
Okay, I'll come out and look.
Well, and then, okay.
Okay.
Where can I
So-
go time?
Okay. Looking for council action here. Councilor Bearable.
Mayor, I'll also move that we authorize it's your contract first, correct?
It's NTS, actually.
NTS, okay, contract for the soil borings on the potential public safety site.
Can I clarify something
Yeah.
real quick? I think there was some confusion on that. So there's two different proposals, and is the soil boring one in there?
That's the next one.
Okay,
okay.
so, yeah, all right.
So what's this one?
This
Just
one's the Phase 1 environmental
one.
review.
Oh, okay. Well, you still got to drill for that, right?
No,
No, you don't for the phase one?
that'll be the phase two.
Oh, okay. So how do you want this worded then?
I think
agree.
we
It needs
need
to be-
to approve NTS's contract for the environmental phase one for the public safety building.
Okay. Got that, Chris?
Moved by Councilor Bearable. Is there support?
Or,
Support by Councilor Johnson. Moved and supported to approve the proposal from NTS for the environmental phase one for the site assessment for the proposed public safety building. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And the next one is the, I guess it's votes received, the proposals received for preliminary geotechnical geoevaluation for proposed public safety building site, and this is the drilling, the soil borings.
Okay, thank you. Of course, obviously, phase two, we approve phase one.
Nope, this is actually soil borings
And the conditions of the soil,
So when does phase two come in then?
after Phase 1.
after
is
phase
complete.
one.
So phase one, this is soil borings, then phase two comes after.
Correct.
Okay, I'm on your frequency, thank you. Councilor Bearable? Or Councilor?
We got two bids on this, didn't we?
Yeah, the proposals, I've reviewed them both, they're pretty comparable with the exception of the price, and I was just looking, I don't have it in my packet that I had emailed to me, but Braun Intertech was a few $1,000s cheaper, I believe, than NTS, so I'd recommend proceeding with Braun to do the soil borings.
Okay. The only concern I have, I sat on that Surrey board for a long time, Matt, and the you have one company doing the initial and the other one doing the second, and then you get to phase two, you don't have good continuity. So we usually try to stay with the same company for both.
You can.
Yeah, and it makes a continuity because they're going to need information from phase one to go to the soil borings to match them up and see what's what.
They're not, the soil bore, the geotechnical, there might be some information they find in those borings, but they're not doing any of the environmental type soil boring work. They're just doing the geotechnical stuff. They'll come back afterwards. Once they've done their phase one, they'll know a little bit better idea what, if anything, well, we know they're gonna have to do something out there as far as drilling, but
So there'll be another proposal for the actual,
for phase
whatever's
two.
in those soil borings. So that,
Soil boring information, they can determine then what kind of foundation we'd need for the site.
okay,
So they
so,
can't start designing the foundation until they know what's in the ground.
yeah,
Then we can't do any of the work until we have the environmental complete, which is phase one and phase two. So two things going hand in hand at the same time.
okay, with that information, I'll move that we allow Braun Intertech to do the soil borings.
I'll support with a quick question.
It's been moved by Counselor Bearable and supported by Counselor Freelieb to approve the contract with Braun Intertech to do the geotechnical inspections of the public safety building site. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freelieb.
Just for clarification, Matt, so NTS, it appears they go, they evaluate, they assess, they're the ones that tell Braun, here's where you're gonna be drilling, or?
No,
No?
that's the next part of the phase two. So the soil, we decided, or I decided, I should say, just at, sort of at random, not completely random, but where to do the soil borings on the site to get an idea of what the site looks like.
So NTS is doing what then precisely for?
They do a phase one, and what that really involves is more of a computer desktop exercise, look at what type of contamination might be out there, or any other environmental concerns they might have, and then following that, they can determine from their information that they have what, they might have to do some more, they are likely to have to do some more site exploration, physical soil boring work on site to determine the extent of the contamination.
But it's separate from what Braun is doing?
Yeah. Braun's not doing anything to deal with the contamination or anything like that. They're strictly looking at the soils.
It's like doing a core sample. They'll look and see that this much is class 5, this much is
That will
sand, this much is
identify-
clay.
That would identify any issues you would have then, right?
Not necessarily, because they just do very small holes. But the phase one will identify what known issues are there and what anticipated issues are
And
there.
NTS evaluates those core samples, or no?
They might ask for that information.
All right, thanks.
So phase one is the environmental. This is geotechnical to determine what soils are to determine what kind of foundation we have to have. And when that's getting done, the analysis comes from an NTS, this gets done, then we go to phase two, which is the second part of the environmental.
Yep, and phase two, like I said, will be the actual drilling in spots that we know there might be potential issues and realizing it's close to Stavers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich, any further discussion?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have two quick questions. The first one is on the map that's in our packet and where the placements are, is SB referring to soil boring
Yes.
and then they're numbered?
Yes.
Okay, and is that all city property and not residential property, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And then thank you. And then do we have any obligation to post anything for the residents to let them know what is taking place in case they have questions?
Not hurt.
Not obligated, but it might not be a bad idea when they start seeing these drill rigs going down the streets and alleys that we let them know that we're drilling, looking what the soil conditions are.
I think that would be my recommendation where I was going
Yeah.
with that. And
Yeah.
I mean, where I could tell on the map, it did look like city property, but I just wanted to confirm that. So I don't know, Matt, how you would recommend handling that, but I think that might be just out of courtesy.
So the city will do some residential notification in whatever media source we have and determine from our administrative staff the necessary steps in which to keep the public in that area informed. Is that what you're asking us to do?
I was asking what Matt's recommendation would be.
Okay, thank you. Your recommendation,
I
Matt?
think that would be that. Do some, I can work with Britt and we can put together some kind of a notification. Just let them know that there's going to be activity going on out there and that it's being done on city property. This'll double up on 10th Street too. We'll get our geotechnical information for that project too, so. Yeah.
Does that
Thank
answer?
you for that, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yep, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Me? Okay.
Thank you, Matt. See you next time.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the quote from Pyrotechnics for the fireworks display for July 4th, 2021. Do note that did go up a little bit, but Sherry has adjusted her budget accordingly.
And we have, we anticipate there would be an increase. You've included that in the 2021 budget, correct?
Yes, in the proposed budget, I did increase it.
Yeah, and they did an outstanding job with the fireworks display based upon what, you know, I think we got, for the lack of a better term, a big bang for our buck, so thank you.
I want to point out, we do have money in the budget for a second fireworks display in 2021. If the price goes up, we may have to find some sponsors, which I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, I think we can work that out. Sherry?
Just want to let everybody know that it's $1,000 a minute. So your money's going up in smoke, but I was told it's pretty smoke.
Well, this is a celebration of our
I know.
nation's independence, so I think we can bear the expenses all other communities usually do, so. Counselor Johnson?
Mayor, have we checked with them to see if there's a discount because we're using them twice a year?
Yeah, this was the discount price.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because we've been a long-term customer. We've been with them for years and years and years. The other company that we used to get quotes from went out of business, so this is the only game in town right now.
All right, thank you. I'll move forward with the attached contract.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson moves to approve. Is there support by Counselor Beyondich? So it's been moved and supported. Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Beyondich to move forward with approval of the quote from Pyrotechnics for the fireworks display on July 4th, 2021. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is review the quotes for housing and hospitality studies. As I had mentioned in an email previously to the council, we have a developer that is seriously interested in looking at building a hotel near the miners. And part of their financing, they would need an updated hotel and hospitality study.
Yeah, and I think that, if I may, looking at the studies and reading through them again, they're fairly recent. I mean, they really are. So it wouldn't take much to upgrade them, would they, Britt?
No, and actually the firm that did recommend that they would, that I did put a quote in for both of them, has agreed to also update them one more time again after March when the census data comes back out. We'd actually get
For the same price? Excellent, okay, thank you. Counselor Johnson?
I would move authorizing city staff to enter the contract with Core Distinction Group for a total of $17,000 for both studies.
Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Is there support?
All support for discussion, Mayor.
I'll support.
We got a support from Counselor Bearable already, also a support from Counselor Paulson for further discussion. Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, I think this is imperative that we need to do this. We know there's a hotel motel shortage. Once this convention center gets going, it's going to take a
Let me look
bunch
at,
of time for individual businesses like a hotel chain or whatever wants to build to start this. And it'd be nice if it's done by the time we get some venues and stuff going on that minor. So I think this is a proactive move ahead.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Bearable. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? It's a lot of money, but, all right. Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Back to number 6.
Okay, let's move back to number 6 on the agenda, is review an updated contract with the Mesaba Humane Society. This is a carryover from the committee of the whole meeting of 10/20/20. I think there were some language changes that we were looking at. Britt?
Yes, actually, I'm going to defer to Sherry because Sherry worked with the Humane Society on this contract.
Sherry?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I did work with Linda Scott, the president of the Humane Society, and we came to a verbal agreement. I'd like to be able to present this, if it's approved by the council, to the board. $40,000 for this 21-21, which is the same as this year. And then there's a 2%. I think there was concern last time about it being a real high bump. So we went with 2%, and then for the year 2023, we would negotiate.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. My other concern was that we have a contract with them, but we're also paying them on top of that significant amount of money. And I guess I'd like to, I would like to see that presented together. I know, Sherry, you had emailed us the extra stuff that they had, that they do, and that, I believe, is medical stuff for the strays they take in, that kind of stuff. So I would, and I know it's hard to know what that would be, but I would like to see that in that contract, that it says that, you know, we're also giving them significant money on top of that, almost, if I remember right, almost double. Sherry, do you
No, I don't recall that.
So we have the contract amount, and then in the contract, they bill us for additional services and fees, if I remember right. And it was more than $40,000, and I just want to make sure that we're, and by all means, it's a needed, we need them in the city, but I want to make sure that we're fully aware of how much we are paying them. And then my other concern was, I had highlighted it, that they do routinely patrol the municipality in the identified vehicle at random times. Routinely and randomly don't seem to match to me, and I guess I'd like for them to, when they send their quarterly report, to identify when they were out patrolling and for how long, just so we know that we're getting, you know, if they're out once a month for an hour, to me, that's not routinely. I mean, it may be once a month for an hour, but just so we know that we're getting them, because they do only take dogs and cats, and any other animals get to, the police department gets to figure out, so. Just want to make sure I don't have any other notes here. So that's where I'm at for now, is I'd really like us to see, maybe we need to put a cap on the additional billing or something like that, just so they know that we are tracking that and being aware of the services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. And just a reminder, their entire budget isn't covered by the city of Virginia, although we pay the lion's share of the costs associated with them operating a Humane Society. They get payments from other communities in the Quad Cities, in which they do apparently provide the same level of service or patrol on a random or routinely basis, however they describe it in their contract. But it's mostly for the care and concern of the animals when they give the shots updates for their animals that they take in. And I think we require them also that before the owner takes it hold, or before somebody adopts it, that they also have to buy a license. And usually you have to come to City Hall. They issue the licenses there too. So it's a small service they provide, but I think to Councilor Johnson's point, you know, I think there's a breaking point as to, you know, what's going to cost based upon what services they provide. So looking at their contract is one thing, but looking at their the sporadic information we get about their patrol logs and how many dogs and cats they've taken in. If you take a look and you divide it by how many animals they've cared for in the city of Virginia, that's a significant amount of money. But it's not about how many dogs and cats, it's about the needs to provide human treatment and care and concerns for animals in the community, limited to dogs and cats. So any other comments, Councilor Bearable?
I have a concern with the way this emergency situation billing is done. They leave it upon the municipality to go after the owner of that particular pet. I think that's their responsibility to go after the owner of the cat or dog or whatever it might be for any expenses incurred in emergencies. Because Steve is right, Councilor Johnson is right, that it ends up an awful lot of extra expense. And I believe that's the responsibility of the owner if they let their animal loose and they don't keep it on the leashes like they're supposed to and the chains, et cetera, because that's a requirement in the city that you don't leave them loose. Now, I know animals get loose, but I don't believe that it's the city's responsibility to pick up the cost for a private individual's animal. That's my point.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a legality issue with respect to enforcement and who has authority to enforce and who does not. Picking up the animal and caring for the animal and those kind of things. I think the owner's responsibility to come, when they come to pick up the animal, I think there's a fee they have to pay in order to get it out of prison, for lack of a better term. But yeah, so any other discussion? Has it been moved and supported? I don't think it has. No, we don't have a motion on the floor yet. So anybody, Councilor Paulson, anything you'd like to add to this discussion with respect to the Humane Society contract?
I guess I appreciate the conversation. I did have a question regarding what last year's contract amount was versus this year's starting at the 40,000. I know there was some numbers thrown around at the last meeting, and I just want to know what the increase from last year was to this year.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Sherry?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Paulson, that number of 40,000 is for this year. It's the same. There was no increase for 2021. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2020 is same as 2021, so.
Okay, and so
Okay, I guess I thought I'd seen a figure at 37,000 somewhere, but maybe I'm wrong.
That was a very old contract.
apparently,
Say
Councilor.
that again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, would you please repeat that, Sherry, so Councilor Paulson can hear?
What you may have seen was a very old contract that was in the packet.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich.
I'm good as well, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bearable.
I would like to ask our city attorney, Brian, that clause is number 5 in that contract. Have you read that contract and taken a look at that? I just absolutely disagree with that prospect where the city is responsible to collect any emergency fees when they treat those animals. I don't agree that that should be our responsibility. It should be the homeowners, or not the homeowners, the party that owns the animal.
Well, if it's a stray, you may not know who that is, right? You may not know who owns the animal, might be abandoned. Okay. All right, thank you. Brian, if you could address Councilor Johnson's question. Welcome, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. To address the question, it's a tough question because from my perspective, there's a couple of things in play here. And first and foremost, I think to speak to Councilor Baraboo's question or his point, it's difficult when the city's asked to seek reimbursement and is asked to expend money where we don't really have any control over when animals do and don't receive care. That being said, I can tell you that this clause, this provision is not an uncommon provision, both with the Humane Society here as well as equivalent organizations throughout across the range. I know that most, if not all, contracts that are put forward contain the same provisions. And so this may be, I think the best way to address it may be to have a meeting with the Humane Society and say one of two things. Number one, either hey, we would like you to take a little bit more responsibility for collecting these fees, or the city may want to have a little bit of input in setting some criteria as to when animals receive these emergency type services. It's a tough conversation, and there's a lot of, anytime you involve pets and folks' animals, my experience tells me that there's going to be a lot of pretty strong emotions involved on both sides of it. But from a legal perspective, if it's a matter of contract, it's permissible. It's just something that we would need to talk to them about.
Okay,
Did it answer the question?
Does that answer your question, Counselor Bearable?
Yeah, that answers my question. Believe me, I'm not an animal hater because I've had animals, dogs and stuff myself, so. But I just thought if we're spending what Counselor Johnson said extra, I think we need to look at this clause in there. Because that's not something we actually put in our budget, I don't believe, do we, Sherry? Is it in there someplace? I didn't see it. That extra cost?
Mayor,
Sherry?
Counselor Bearable, and council, I would like to be able to research what Steve said, and I'll send it out in an email to you and Brian.
Okay, thank.
Can you do that before the council meeting? Yeah, because that would be a place we could act on it then instead of here today.
Yeah, thank you. I know that this contract has been in angst with the city council for a long time. You know, it seems to be fragmented, and the relationship between the Humane Society and the City of Virginia the communication has been very good. And I know we've approached the Humane Society, try to discuss to them, be more productive, be proactive, give us a report moving forward. We don't get enough of the information, so I think it's prudent for us to continue to fine tune this contract with our city administrator, our city finance director, and our city attorney to come up with a contract that's going to lay out the expenditures from the very beginning. What are we going to pay and what we aren't going to pay? So these costs, based on an emergency basis, those have to be identified. I think that's good for conversation moving forward. And I don't know if that can be accomplished by the next city council meeting, but we'll see. Councilor Freely.
So just real quick to recap, we have just tentatively settled a contract for 2 years with our pet control officer at 0% year 1, 2% year 2. Okay, good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so looking for some council action. Councilor Johnson.
I would make a motion that we just move this to the meeting next Tuesday for further discussion with the information that Sherry's willing to provide.
Okay, based on the discussion at DA's committee home meeting, Councilor Johnson moves to have Sherry do some more discussion with the Humane Society, do some clarification, and bring that back to our city council meeting next Tuesday for consideration of further council action. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Freely. Any further discussion? Councilor Beyondich, any further discussion?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Paulson?
I'm good as well. Thank you.
Thank you. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Back on track here, so we're item number 8 now. Review the proposal from DSGW for furniture, fixtures, and equipment design services for the MEC. And we have Eric Wedge from DSGW here, and we also have Brian Silber, our Park and Recreation Director.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to go first? Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. Thank you, Chris. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Council. At one of our last design team meetings, as we were beginning to discuss furniture, fixture, and equipment for the MEC, our design team asked if we could get some more professional assistance in doing this, as none of us are experts at picking out furniture and going with looking for the quality and quantity of furniture and fixtures that we are going to need for this facility. So we have requested DSGW to put together this proposal for us to be able to use their interior design branch to assist us in this process. And that is what you have before you today, that additional cost.
Okay, so my first question is this cost that you believe is necessary and is it absorbed in the current budget moving forward as part of the contingency?
This cost would be very beneficial to our design team, and it would come out of our FF&E budget.
Very good, thank you. Counselor Freely?
I was going to ask, so it comes out of the FF&E,
Yes.
not the
It's
contingency?
not an additional cost on top of what has already been approved. It's going to be coming out of money that has been set aside for this project.
And it would minimally impact anything that we'd be able to purchase, apparently.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson?
So what was all that stuff we did before? With the pictures and the lights and,
That was throughout the design development phase. This is actually picking out the furniture, getting the samples of the furniture, the colors of the furniture, moving forward with that portion.
and the design team, Eric's job will be and his team will be to facilitate the design team as you did with the outside walls. that
Correct.
kind of- Okay, thank you.
Okay, and before we go any further, I believe that we have Counselor Paulson is on the design team, is that correct? Is Counselor Beyondich also on the design team? So before we move into the rest of the council for some discussion purposes, is that okay? All right, so we'll go to Counselor Beyondich first. Counselor Beyondich, any further information you want to share with respect to the decision made at that design team meeting?
Yes, thank you. We have been meeting and things are moving along nicely. But as we've started talking about the furniture and how we can incorporate it into the feel of the building, and it's my personal feeling, there are so many choices that I feel I am not equipped to start picking out things for a project of this magnitude. And I would really appreciate some outside help with that. There's so many details when you go into this. I think having the professional help guide us through that would be very beneficial for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I would completely agree with Councilor Beyondich and also just add that there was just a catalog brought forward at the meeting, and it was more specific to office furniture. And the more that the design team had a conversation around that, the more even that Eric had kind of added that there's also hospitality furniture, more like hotel furniture. So we've got two different, segments. We've got office space to deal with, as well as the conference and the ballroom areas. So I also feel that it would be I absolutely feel that it would probably save us money in the long run to have this type of a consultation and professional team behind us in making these decisions as we go forward.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Did you have something, Counselor? Okay. Eric?
I would just also like to state that the DSGW design team has been hired to do the FF&E package for the school. And if those of you that are on any of the school facilities committees are following that, we are actually getting furniture samples delivered to the school for the teachers, staff, and kids to try. In this process, if you hire DSGW for this, we will get you conference tables, conference chairs. You can physically sit in them, try them out, find out what you like, what you don't like. We will also be strongly working by state statute. You guys can buy furniture on contract. So we can go to your local vendors in town, and they will already have a negotiated price for each piece of furniture, and you can go in knowing ahead of time that this chair costs X amount of dollars, the chair next to it that you sit in costs X amount of dollars, and we have a quantity of chairs so that we can work with you to make sure that the FF&E portion of this comes within your budget expectations. So I just wanted to add that. And, we can work with the local vendors of Firelight Galleries, Range Office Supply, Burger Office Supply, because they all can buy this furniture on state contract and provide samples for you. Maybe not all the furniture is purchased from one vendor. Maybe there are pieces from each vendor that you like, and you can also spread your purchasing power around to the various local businesses in town. Thank you. I would also like to address Councilor Johnson's first concern is that we have a very strong conceptual design of what the furniture is going to be. We had to do that for the construction of the building to make sure that we had power and data and outlets all in the correct location. This process will be verifying those quantities of furniture that were laid out in the construction documents for those services, but actually getting down to the specifics of, are we doing a KI, steel case, various brands of furniture that meet your quality and budget requirements.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Eric, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, looking for some council action.
I would move to approve the.
I would make a motion to move this forward.
Councilor Beyondich, part of the design team, makes a motion to move forward with the contract with DSGW to assist with the FF furniture, fixtures, and equipment, supported by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Eric.
Item number 9 is approval of a resolution to hire a mechanic.
I will move the hiring of the mechanic as stated in the resolution.
Moved by Councilor Johnson to move forward with the hiring of a mechanic for Public Works.
I'll
Is there
support.
and support by Councilor Paulson? Is there any further discussion?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is review proposals for labor negotiation services. And in your packet, I had prepared a memo of a synopsis of what had occurred. We have received 2 quotes back, or 2 proposals back. I had sent out to numerous firms. I received back.
Okay, thank you. Looking for some discussion with respect to this, this Councilor Freely first.
Have negotiations been initiated?
As required by state law, they have to give us notification that they're ready to enter into negotiations, and they have for both AFSCME and MAPE. We just have not started negotiations yet.
And so typically, would we not negotiate internally, and should we come to loggerheads, so to speak, then we would initiate the use of a labor relations negotiation consulting services, or is it a time constraint type thing? I guess I'm not sure exactly why we go to this level prior to internal negotiations occurring.
What happened last negotiation round with AFSCME was that Sherry and I, with Tom Budarak, negotiated the contract, began negotiations with AFSCME. We got to a stalemate. We had to go get a mediator, who then came and solved it in 1 day, I believe. We did have to escalate that one.
So from AFSCME's standpoint, Scott, is that something that you would advise doing, or do you prefer doing it internally initially?
Scott Duranko, AFSCME representative. Scott, good morning.
From being on the previous negotiating committee, I would advise to go internally first. You know, because like last time, like Britt says, we came into a stalemate because we couldn't agree, so they brought in a mediator. And then we came up with an agreement. You know, it was just usually small stuff that you have to deal with, and it worked out fine.
But there is an anticipation that there may be a settlement without a mediator in this capacity, so it may be premature to spend this kind of money.
I would strongly advise against it, I guess. I mean, just because of the spending of the money, because ultimately it still comes down to the approval of the council. They still have to approve the contract, you know what I mean? We can come up with an agreement, but you people as on the council still have the final say.
Yeah.
You know, I stress that.
And I guess I'm just looking at it from the standpoint, we just completed a 2-year renewal with another employee and did a nice job of doing that internally. I know it's a much larger group than just an individual, but I think we're on the right path to be able to agree to what's reasonable.
And I refer back to this spring when we ran into the COVID situation. We got together with the city with Britt and Sherry and everybody involved, and we worked out an awesome agreement, you know what I mean, to benefit the city. You know what I'm saying, is basically what we're trying to do.
I guess from my perspective, I just feel it's a little premature to be entering into an agreement with the costs that we would incur, given the potential for us to settle internally. That's where I stand.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to the phone, let's go to the councilors who have lights on, Councilor Bearable, and then on to Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, I disagree wholeheartedly that we need an external not mediator, but negotiator. I've been involved throughout the years, and I've been here a long time, more than once with outside negotiators. And the cost keeps escalating, and we still end up with mediation and arbitration sometimes on those with the outside. I'd rather see it like Councilor Friedlib, go through the process. The only thing I would like to see ahead of this, would love to see our administrative people give us an outline of where they're going ahead of time. We used to do that, so if we had any input, we could go back and give them input.
We did that back in 2016. We met first and made a list of what we were asking for. And ASME, of course, comes in with the list of what they're asking for. So we.
Right, and if the council agrees, if they don't, then we put input.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. Councilor Johnson.
I think when this was brought up, was just to have options. And I appreciate what you said at the last meeting, Scott, when you talked about how you feel the relationship is very strong, and I see that and I support that. And I appreciate knowing that for $125 to $150 an hour, we've already got that built in, and our staff do a great job. And I appreciate, Britt, that you did go out and get the, that we can calculate savings on this too. After this process is done, if it took you 20 hours, we can figure out that what by having our professional staff save the city as we move forward. And again, the relationship and having a conversation as opposed to a confrontation, I think is huge when it comes to the staff, both the administrative staff and then the direct line staff that service the city. So I think that we, my suggestion will be is that we file the bids that, or the quotes that Britt got, and we allow the staff to move forward.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Let's go to the phones, and then I think I'd have a couple comments as well. First, Councilor Beyondich, any questions, concerns, comments?
Thank you. I'm torn on this. At times, I think we need somebody totally from the outside that can negotiate. So I have mixed feelings on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think part of my intention with bringing this up the last time was basically due to a specific position with a specific dollar amount. And as Scott was so kind to clarify, that it does ultimately come down to the council. But the other part of my concern would be the fact that we do need people at arm's length. And this is nothing personal against our city administrator, but I'm not sure which contract follows which, but our city administrator is in the union MAPE union. And I just am a little, I guess that just makes me a little uneasy. Not that we need an outside negotiator, but, maybe we need to develop more of a team. Maybe it's part of the personnel committee. I don't know exactly but I just feel like part of me was concerned at the beginning was that we do have negotiations done at an arm's length from our employees. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Just to clarify that, our city administrator is not a member of a bargaining unit. She's an at-will employee. In fact, I would assume that in some future time, we're going to have to take a look at the compensation package we provide her, because it's been, and I think our finance director is HR director is in the same boat. So I have a couple comments I'd like to make. First and foremost.
Can I?
Yeah, please do.
Can I clarify one thing?
Yes, please do. Councilor Paulson.
I did not realize that. So I appreciate the clarification on your end. I thought our city administrator was in the MAPE union.
Okay, thank you. Neither is our finance HR director. They're both at will.
Okay, so then I'm comfortable with that as long as there's no one in negotiations that are currently within a union.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. From my perspective is that, I've experienced both as an elected official here, both as a president of a union negotiating a contract with another public entity, being part of a negotiating team on the management side later on down in my career. The same, obviously, that was taken care of. And we had internal, and I've dealt with external negotiators as well. I think that our staff has done yeoman's work. My only concern, and it's really not a concern, my only issue is that, we have a lot on our plate. Our administrators have, and our HR finance director have a lot on their plates, but they've been able to carve out the time for negotiations moving forward. And I do agree, and my experience has been, I've seen outside negotiators take a negotiation to a level of a place where there's a significant amount of money expended, and it's been unnecessarily is drawn out for a longer period of time for whatever reason. It can be confrontational. I think our staff has the capability of moving forward. That's been proven by the last couple of contract negotiations that we've done. The city council elected officials have been intricately involved in these negotiations, looked at the negotiation process, looked at the offers that were being made, was able to comment and communicate and be part of that process, being the final decision makers as to what compensation packages we're providing to our employees. And I want to say that we as a city have always provided a commensurate, we haven't always, but we do now continue to provide a commensurate salary and benefit package to keep the high quality employees that we have, and we are very selective on who we hire. So we have to be cognizant of the need to negotiate in a manner that's going to be, we all exhibit a professional decorum. And in the event that we have a question, we have a city attorney firm on staff that has experience in that regard, so we can always refer to our city attorney, who's already on staff moving forward, to answer any specific questions we may have. So at this point in time, I think I would concur with, I think Councilor Johnson's comment about thanks, we took a look at the quotes, we've seen what they're like. I would be supportive of tabling those and receiving and filing those quotes and moving forward with our previous method of negotiations internally through our city staff. So those are my comments. Looking for additional comments from the city or from our elected officials. Does anybody have anything? And if not, we'll look for some council action here. Councilor Aberbu.
Steve, you're going to make a motion on that? Or do you want me to?
I can make the motion.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor, that we receive and file the bids and move forward with the administrative non-contract employees doing our negotiating.
A move by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
I will support, Mayor.
Supported by Councilor Aberbu to receive and file the bids we have for an outside negotiating team, and with moving forward with the eternal negotiation process as we have done previously. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
The next item on the agenda is under Buildings and Grounds, and is approve a resolution to act as a fiscal agent for an IRRB demolition grant for the La Casina expansion. We had approved this in 2018. She is now looking to move forward with the demolition of the former Heron main building to look to put a patio out there next spring.
Thank you.
We'll move the pass-through.
Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Further discussion? Just on a side note, I had lunch there yesterday, got a chance to talk to Amy. She's excited about having roof done. She was on the phone with the roofing contractor at the time, so she's excited about moving forward with that project. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Britt?
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the amendment to the Vaha Youth Hockey lease. In your packet, I did put the email from Roger Behrens from MMB regarding a checklist we have to complete for the bonding money, the $12 million. And part of that checklist is I had to produce all the leases we have for the facility. And his response was we had to make changes immediately to this year's lease because state statute does not allow that we collect additional funds above and beyond for capital improvements. And there was a few other small changes we had to make. So the amendment that's in your packet was the amendment that is approved by MMB, has been signed by Vaha, and now is coming to the city council for approval. And please realize that their contract expires in 2021, so we have to negotiate a new contract. We always intended to negotiate a new one with the new building. This may change dramatically starting in 2021.
Yes, thank you. And those any MMB requirements would be null and void after the building is up and we're running, or is that?
Oh, 20 years. We have to be in contact with MMB.
Okay, thank you.
The price you pay for getting state bonding dollars is you have a scrutiny from the state on all you do in the facility. They are completely 100% okay with hourly rentals. They don't have a problem with that whatsoever.
Thank you. I'm looking for council action.
I will move the amended lease that is signed by Vaha.
Okay, Councilor Johnson moves to approve the amendment to the Vaha Youth Hockey lease. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Further discussion after support from Councilor Freely. Councilor Freely?
So does this abandon the current lease with Baja?
Nope, that's just an amendment to the current lease. So they have a lease, and then this is the amendment, and I think it's all in your packet.
Okay, yeah, but I'm still confused in terms of like how we're in violation because they're really renting only ice time.
We had a spot in that lease that's required them to pay $5,000 a year for capital improvements.
Oh, I did not know that.
That's illegal.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Of course, Vaha's happy that we took that clause out.
But they could donate it.
They certainly can donate it. They can definitely do a donation, and we certainly can give them a receipt,
Yeah, very good, thank you.
an approved tax IRS donation.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is review the proposed revision to the Evelyn, Virginia Airport Authority Joint Powers Agreement language regarding quorum. There was a little misconception there that the number of people that need to be there for a quorum, we just want to tighten that information just a little bit.
Yeah, I think Councilor Johnson and I both attended the last airport meeting, and it was obvious that that there were some issues there that still have to be resolved. So, any comments, Councilor Johnson?
I think that as we move forward, we will need to have more than 5 people on that commission, but for now, I think we're in the right spot and we're moving forward.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking for council action on the proposed revision.
I got a question, that Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Bearable.
With what I'm reading here, I only see 4 members. Where's the 5th one in this information that we received? I only see 1 from each, and then an additional 1 from each council, or 2 from one of the councils. It's only 4. Where's the 5th coming from?
We don't need a quorum with 5, we need a quorum with 4.
Is this just for the quorum?
Just for the quorum, that's just the quorum paragraph, that's not the other language.
Oh, I missed
Trying to
that.
change it to say that both the city council members from both cities don't have to be there, but one of the city council members from
Well,
both
yeah,
cities
I
have to be
underst-
there,
I
along with the
understand that,
at-large.
Okay. Well, it just says members of, okay, I thought it was council members, but it's not, it's just members of either city. Okay, I read it wrong. Sorry about that.
Councilor Johnson?
My understanding is the intent is to make sure that both cities are represented at every meeting. And in the past, what's happened is neither city has been represented. It's only been the members of the general public. So we're really trying to ensure that the governmental part of the authority is being adhered to, not just the operations of the airport.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich, any further discussion?
No, thank you.
Counselor Paulson?
No, thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 14 is review the amended tobacco ordinance. We do have our attorney, Brian Lindsay, here.
So this mean we can't sell tobacco anywhere in the city of Virginia? Is that? Oh, I'm only joking. Brian, could you please give us a little humor out there?
Here, was that a motion?
It's a little humor out there for those who are listening at home. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. I did assist in revising the tobacco ordinance. There's a couple primary changes that were made. First and foremost, and the original purpose to send this ordinance across my desk was to make sure we're in compliance with the 21 years application. As I went through the ordinance a little bit more, we've expanded. The second thing that I did was I expanded the definition section just a little bit, updated the purpose to be more in line with what's currently going on out there, and specifically incorporating some of the language that refers to vaping or using the vapor mechanisms to inhale tobacco. And the third thing, and in my mind at least, one of the important things that I did was I addressed that administrative procedure and made sure that we incorporated some additional due process procedures in there, which are required if we're going to have an administrative fine system in place. And so I expanded that to make sure that we provided for the appropriate hearings and things to take place, so that if anybody challenges our administrative fine structure within this ordinance, we're going to be found to be okay. Those are the primary changes, but I'd be happy to answer any specific questions.
I just have one question, Brian. You know, a while back when we did the synthetic drug ordinance for synthetics, does any changes recommended in there affect our ability to negate or to prohibit any of that activity to be from a retail perspective anywhere in the city of Virginia? Has no adverse effect on that?
No, our tobacco ordinance shouldn't in any way affect the prohibition against synthetics.
Thank you very much. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, Brian, this is kind of that Tobacco 21 that was being pushed really hard before the federal government signed. So this brings us in compliance, and then says in the city, we also believe that nobody under the age of 21 should be buying anything tobacco related. Is that?
Correct. It brings us into compliance with Tobacco 21. And then if you look, if you read through the updated purpose, it incorporates a lot of the background information that supports the move that's been the trend to 21. And then it also, as it relates to 21, as opposed to just changing the age dates in there from 18 to 21, it redefines in certain places where the old ordinance and the old provisions in the statute refer to minor. We now have to refer to person less than 21 years of age. And then with regard to the compliance checks, there's been some new guidance that's been put out there about the ages of the folks that you should send in to do those checks. That all has been incorporated in here, so this should be up to date as of right now today.
And there's a lot of blue. I skimmed it. It's a lot of legal stuff, but I appreciate your work on this, and hopefully this moves our community even closer to being a healthier community. Thank you for your work.
And I think it also begs the question of us taking another look at the tobacco. I know this has been preliminary discussion within the general public, and I think there's been some very sporadic discussion about vaping products and the sale of those in the city of Virginia as well, although they continue to be able to sell them. but there's other cities that have prohibited that from happening. So for those who have asked that question of me in the last couple of weeks, that's something for us to take a look at, consider in the future, but this change in the tobacco policy doesn't address that. Brian?
No, it wouldn't address the question of prohibition, but it would lump those vaping products in with tobacco products and keep the age and raise the age to purchase to 21.
Thank you. Okay, council action, Councilor Johnson.
I will move the amended ordinance as presented to the next council meeting for its first reading.
Full support.
Okay, moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Bearable, to move forward with the review of the amended tobacco ordinance as outlined by our city attorney. This is the first reading. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson?
No, thank you.
Councilor Beyondich?
No further discussion from me.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And before we go into item number 15, Britt, it's not on the agenda. We had some discussion earlier. Did you want to bring that issue up? That's later on down the road for...
Later on down the road. We do, however, have Fire Chief Alan Lewis here to talk about the civil unrest policy and civil unrest planning that I did send out this morning.
Right.
And I did put on your desk today.
Yeah, if we can, let's do that first before we go into closed session, or maybe go into closed session about the purchase of this property. Chief, I know we had a brief discussion about my experience years ago, and apparently that's not an option any longer as far as crowd control. So, Chief, this is to give us a perspective on the emergency response in the event we have some after-election unrest, and our response to that with both a combination between the city, Public Works, Park and Rec, Police and Fire, and EMS. Chief, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Council. Just to be clear, this isn't in response to any specific threat. This is just a general preparedness statement. And you know, the mayor did mention that as far as crowd control, the fire department has no role in crowd control at all. That is strictly a law enforcement. And I know in years past that may not have always been the case, but that is a policy of our department and supported by our city. And I've had our city attorney look over with some minor wording changes to one portion of this civil unrest policy. So again, it is important, and this policy came out of the State Fire Marshal's office with guidance to firefighters. I was on a conference call with about 80, or a Zoom meeting with about 80 different fire chiefs, and it was discussed at length. I don't foresee the issues that the metro area is very likely to face in the coming hours and days and weeks happening here, just so that we are prepared, though. We did adopt this civil unrest policy. I've had Deputy Chief Nicola review it, as well as Deputy Chief Frederickson, and then, as I mentioned, legal review. So there's going to be a few minor wording changes in just one section of this. But this just lays out what our role is and how we coordinate in a unified command system under the NIMS 700 process, where we have that unity of government. In any kind of civil unrest, of course, law enforcement is going to assume the lead role. As an emergency manager, I will be there with them to help coordinate fire and EMS resources. But our response may look very, very different, and we have to be able to adapt to changing conditions. You get one structure fire in this town, and it totally drains our resources. We're calling in mutual aid. Imagine now 3, 4, 5, 6 simultaneous events, medical, fire. It's very easy to see how quickly we could become overwhelmed by that kind of a scenario. So this is preparation for it. It can apply to other things beyond just civil unrest as far as a preparedness mindset, natural disasters, you know, how we triage, responding to multiple simultaneously occurring incidents. But if anybody has any questions on you know, the background, the definition, the purposes, and operational policies, I'd be happy to discuss that one-on-one. There is solid reasons behind each of it. So other than just some minor wording changes, this policy will be adopted and be into effect as of today. Any questions?
Question and one comment, Chief. The first question is this is a policy that's going to be adjusted and adapted and changed, and this is something that's going to be incorporated into the emergency management plan that we do have. Is that correct?
So this, the civil unrest policy, again, this is a fire department policy, so this is not a citywide policy. But as the emergency management, were we to operate the Emergency Operations Center, and we've got a procedure for doing that, this would guide our fire department's response to incidents in the city and in our surrounding PSA. So it's a modification of a response that we would normally do. So yes, it would fall in line with that.
Thank you very much. And then, so I've reviewed the policy. It's a lot different than what I experienced before in my years past, in my personal, in my other professional life. I know over time things change, society changes, response change, both for police, fire, and EMS changes. I looked for the policy, had some discussion with you about it briefly. I'm very comfortable with the policy moving forward. Thanks for putting this together and for a city attorney for reviewing it. So I'm ready to move forward with it. Any further discussion or questions or concerns? First, Councilor Johnson, and then on to Councilor Bearable. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's been a while since I've reviewed the city's overall. Is there a civil unrest portion to our city emergency planning? I'm seeing Britt shaking her head. Maybe that's something we should be looking at just in general for the future, that my thought was thinking that if something were to happen, how does, if we're calling in people to help city employees, how do they know what the command structure is? How does someone from the sewer crew know who he or she should be listening to in that event? And I would hope that all of our staff would just follow directions. But in the event that something happens in the future, in 4 more years, we'll be doing this all over again, I'm sure. So I guess I'd like to request the staff start looking at anything like that unforeseeable, but at least there's some documentation.
And that was my question earlier. Is it incorporated into the emergency operations plan or not? And it's not at this point in time.
No, because that would actually be an annex in the emergency operations plan, and you would add that in, but that's going to take input from our police department because they would be the lead agency in any kind of civil
Agreed, and I
unrest.
think to my point and to Councilor Johnson's point that we'd like to see that discussion move forward. Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
That's all I have. I just wanted to know and know that now that it's been brought up, it'll be worked on. I appreciate that. And the document you provided has a great flow chart. I see you pulled that up. And so I just want to make sure that people, new hires, that kind of stuff, and you can't plan for everything. Training is training, and there's some things that no matter what you do, you cannot anticipate what to do, but just to know that you all have a plan, and this allows for a good basis should something happen in the near future. So thank you for your work on it, Chief.
Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, Chief, I just have a couple questions for you. I'm assuming that if somebody throws a firebomb through a window, you're going to respond right away, or is the police going to have to tell you to respond in your stuff? I haven't had a chance to read these just because it just came this morning.
So
I don't want to see the whole city block go up.
That's just a one isolated incident. So what we have to do is look at the entire operational picture before we respond. So if this had happened.
That's wrong in my book, because you got a city block that could all go up. You got to respond right away to those fires. I don't care who you are or what your protocol is. I don't want to see this city burn, okay?
Well, I'm not going to have firefighters. I'm not going to have firefighters shot either, and that's what they're facing in the metro.
That's what the police are there for.
Yeah.
And if the police can't handle it, we can handle it as citizens because we have enough firepower up here to start an army. I'm serious.
I realize that. So if you will look a little bit closer at the civil unrest policy, it
I
talks
haven't
about
read it yet
joint.
because we just got it this morning.
Okay. So there is a provision in there that talks about a co-response. So that's where you would put officers with your engines. And if you go all the way back to the LA type of riots in '92, where you literally had, National Guardsmen and police officers riding fire engines, armed and escorting those engines in. I hope to God we don't get to that point, but I believe that the cities very, very easily could get to that point. And what they choose to do there is different. That's why I'm also going to recommend that we do not send any of our folks to the cities at this point. Given the COVID situation, given the staffing levels that we have, we simply don't have the people to spare to go to another type of unrest situation. So we will keep our people here, at least for this window of opportunity.
Well, you're talking about going to other communities.
Yeah, we don't have this, we
That I
don't have the
understand.
bandwidth.
I'm talking about our community. So you will respond if there's a fire in our community.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
that's
my
never been in
concern.
question. There would have to be something that would change the entire
if
picture
there's-
to make it a threat. So
There's guns and stuff on the street, that's a different story.
that's what I'm referring to, because we have to plan for worst-case scenario. We hope we don't go there, but yeah, no, your fire department, your EMS will always respond as long as we're able to. And if we need to get additional protection to do that, we will find that additional protection. Our police and sheriff's department and National Guard, if necessary, will come in to support that mission.
And my concern is we have a lot of individuals who live above these stores that are in this downtown area. And we got to make sure they're protected somehow if they need to get out, whatever. And sometimes they may not be able to, and you guys have to respond with your ladder truck or something to get them out.
Yep.
I'm just concerned about safety.
Again, give us 2 or 3, 4 or 5 fires simultaneously.
No, I know, I understand that part.
Okay, that's why we have this planning and a triage
Okay.
process.
Okay, and it's all spelled out in what we got this morning? Because I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
It's there.
Okay, if I just make just a couple of clarifications with respect to Councilor Bearabou's concerns, obviously we all have those same concerns. But under the Emergency Management Operations Plan, under the response plan, based upon the certain circumstances, you take the tactical approach based upon the incident. You respond to the incident based upon what that incident entails. And as you're aware, Chief, in your previous, in your other jobs, how response is dictated by the danger, by the number of calls you get for service, by the diversions that are perpetrated by those who are rioting. All those things come into place. So as part of this emergency operations plan, when you're responding whenever possible to keep the safety of your first responders as clearly as you can, because under those extreme circumstances, which we hope will never happen here in the city of Virginia, and that would be limited to the larger cities, is that in order for you to respond, you have to be able to respond. And for you to respond, you have to have protection which to do so. That's why the coordinated plan under emergency management, under this policy, helps you do that. When you coordinate that with law enforcement to give you the protection moving in and out, they're setting up perimeters, finding other departments that can come and help you, setting up your emergency operations center, using your tactical response teams with respect to your coordinated efforts with the St. Louis County Sheriff's Department and the St. Louis County Emergency Management Team as well. So I know you have all those mechanisms in place. We all have the same concerns that Councilor Baraboo has about ability to respond. But, with the limited resources we have, we want to make sure that those resources get to the problem that we have, whether it's a fire, whether it's a medical emergency, whether it's an evacuation perspective, or it's a law enforcement response where they need a paramedic or a tactical paramedic, which you have trained here in Virginia to respond to help them out. So it's a coordinated effort moving forward, and whatever response we have to make, you'll make it based upon that, and it's going to be based upon how many personnel you're going to have the ability to respond, because if it breaks out, it's not just going to be to Virginia, it would be elsewhere as well. So all other departments and all other community resources will be taxed by responding to their own environment, and I think that's why you've taken the steps to make sure that our cities take care of first before we move outside the area moving forward. And I think, does that answer your question about what they want to do there? Very good, okay.
I understand. I kind of misunderstood that. I thought you were talking about not responding in the local community. It was to other communities. That makes a big difference. Okay?
Thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Paulson, any questions or comments or concerns about this policy?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay, looking for council action and motion moving forward on this policy.
I will move that we adopt the policy as presented with the amendments the chief is talking about.
Counselor Paulson, I'm sorry, Counselor Johnson moves the proposal for the emergency management policy for crisis response. What's it officially called? Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Counselor
Before we pass this, how many of us have read it?
I read it.
Well, yeah, you got it probably ahead of time. And we didn't. I haven't read it yet. Gary, have you read
Point
it
of
yet?
clarification is that we don't need to, this is a fire department policy, that we don't need to adopt their policy for them. They can do that themselves. We do need to add it to our emergency management ordinance.
Oh, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, so it's
That's a
something we
whole-
can.
That's
we
a
can
whole
move
different
forward.
thing.
It's a little different, yep.
And that was my point in the very beginning, and I think also alluded to by Counselor Johnson, so.
Okay, that's a
We need
whole
to create a
different.
policy for our staff so that they are all well aware that when something happens, they know what to do immediately.
Okay.
We're
then I
all
don't have a
praying and
problem
hoping
with it.
nothing's going to happen. We have no immediate knowledge of any threats. We've heard nothing of anything, and our staff's pretty good at keeping their thumb on the pulse of the vibe around the area.
Okay, so are we all, as an elected body, clear on that? Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Okay, so before we go into closed session,
We actually have the people that are interested in purchasing the building here in the audience today.
hey, did you want to go into closed session, or we're going to
Not going
keep?
closed session with them in the audience, so we
Right,
need
but
to hear
I'm-
from them first before we go.
Well, that was be my question. Let them come first, and then, if necessary, go into closed session?
Yep, so you're referring to item number 15, review the request to
I am,
purchase
thank you.
city-owned property at 329 Chestnut Street.
Okay, thank you. Could you just take a couple minutes, I think, Counselor Bearable? Just take 2 minutes if we may, and then we'll have Mr. and Mrs. Wallace come forward, and so we'll just take a quick short break for those who are watching from home.
I can't hear you. Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, I didn't hear that we're on a break.
Okay, thank you. We'll get back to business. We've taken a short break, and now we're out to number 15 on the agenda. Britt?
Yep. Item number 15 is review the request to purchase city-owned property at 329 Chestnut Street. This portion of the meeting may be closed as per Minnesota Statute 13D05 Subdivision 3. And we have in attendance today Joseph and Christine Walls, who are interested in purchasing the building.
Well, welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Walls. If you'd like to come forward and say anything, or you're welcome to address the council if you like. I think it's required that we go into closed session to discuss any negotiations or offers or whatever. So we'd like you to come forward. Welcome to the city of Virginia. Thank you for taking interest in our downtown business vacancy building. We're excited about reviving the downtown. So thank you for your interest in your investment. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you.
So we had an opportunity to meet everybody here last week, and I thank you so much for being just so receptive. And we feel so much at home here. We've been excited about integrating into Virginia. We're fully on board. We are through and through Virginia, and if that is the term. But our whole goal is to help revive and bring back just some wonderful charm to the whole Main Street Chestnut area. That's been our passion for a long time. At one point, we thought that the dream of ours might happen in St. Paul, but as the years have transpired and we started looking around and vacationing near Orr at Pelican Lake for the last 7 years, and now we got to know the Metzes actually quite well.
Yeah.
And so just falling in love with Virginia, which was my football rival coming from International Falls, and so now changing my thinking and just adopting this is my home, and our kids love it, and seeing that our dream is actually about to come to fruition here in Virginia, and it's just a hand in a glove. And the property specifically at 329 Chestnut is the business with an apartment upstairs. Our first goal would be to renovate the apartment and get everything up to code, remodeled, and completely ready to go, so that we could begin making an income on the rental part for the residents upstairs, and then continue to be moving forward kind of simultaneously, but obviously our priority would be the rental, and then we would move forward with the business and moving in a very dreamt family mercantile that has a turn of the century charm and revisits a lot of the black and white pictures that we've seen of Chestnut, and bringing that back, having a little something for everybody, and some staples and some uniques, and we're looking forward to having everybody come and visit once it's open too. Also, I've played guitar my whole life, and my dad put a guitar in my hands when I was 5, and I haven't set it down. And I've played, been around the world actually playing, not like super famous, but it has allowed me to travel, and have seen a lot and done a lot, and I've been giving guitar lessons now for the last 10 years as our own business, Acoustic Walls LLC, and we've migrated that business up here, and in this current climate, online lessons is the forefront of what we do for the business, but we want to engage again, as I had at one point, in guitar parts, accessories, sales, things like that. And so it, again, will be a very unique and eclectic blend of this mercantile, along with acoustic stringed instruments. So we're looking at things from 6 and 12 string guitars, mandolins, banjos, ukuleles, and things like that. And this building services, or would allow us to service tune-ups, minor repairs and things like that in the back. And we would also have a section of it that would be that would accommodate individual guitar lessons. You know, even if they needed to be spaced, I guess we could still do that, but whatever is taking place at the time, you know, because again, having given guitar lessons for many years, that's something where whether it was individual or group lessons, we would be able to do that as well.
Well, excellent, thank you. Any questions from the council moving forward? Is some information in the packet with respect to that, Councilor Friedlieb?
You know, 60-plus years ago, my biological father, Arthur Ricola, actually ran a liquor store out of that building.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And my mother actually had the Trim and Curl beauty shop just down the block. And anecdotally, she said that there was some frequency when she would stop in around noon hour, and multiple city officials would stop in the back room at Arts Liquors to have some liquid lunch to gear up for the rest of the day. As times have changed, but I hope. But I just had to relate that because my wife and I have walked by there multiple times and thought similarly how it would be nice to see something like that, you know, something revived there, you know, in that building as it relates to our family, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm all for the giving you the opportunity with the requests that you're seeking to. I don't know if everybody else is on board with that or not, but I think the idea that you have, the passion that you're showing, the interest that you have, and welcome to the city as well. You mentioned the Metzas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, great. I'm
Johnny
glad you
Crow.
know them because I grew up and graduated with John. He and I worked together at the St. Louis County School District for many years. And
Yeah.
so you've got good connections in the community for sure that go way back, including their father up on the wall here being a mayor at one time. So, yeah, well, welcome to the community and good luck with this endeavor. I'm fully in favor of seeing it come to fruition on your behalf.
Yeah, and I just look forward to talking with you later on down the road, reminiscing about International Falls. I have some relatives up there and some other things. So, and the experiences that you had up in Orr. I have good friends up there. So I look forward to coming into your shop, hopefully, and or seeing you on the road or somewhere else, and having some conversation about the experience and see if we know the same people. So, so does anybody have anything else that they'd like to add to questions before we likely move into closed session to discuss the offer made by the Walls? Councilor Barnzelli?
Did you play hockey up there?
I didn't put the skates on as soon as I grabbed the guitar, so I played intramurals, but I did donate a tooth to the sport, so I feel I'm legitimate.
Well, welcome to Virginia, and I hope you guys are really successful and help our downtown revive.
We love it. We've gotten to meet a couple of the different shop owners, you know, from Pep's, the first place we fell in love with, and the gentleman who runs the Hallmark shop,
Yeah.
and John and his sister who run Ace, and you know, just getting to know these people already, and everybody's friendly. I know that sounds pretty blanket statement, but it's been great.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson, any questions for the Walls?
Welcome to Virginia. You will be my neighbor.
Oh, wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you.
And you operate?
Roxford Jewelers,
Roxford
314 Chestnut.
Oh, we walked by there and I looked in and said, oh, wow, honey, for Christmas.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
I would also like to welcome them to Virginia and showing an interest in investing in our downtown. I think that's great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we'll likely have a motion to move into closed session to discuss the offers that you made. We'll have to make the decision. We'll have some comments from our city administrator, city attorney, and so we'll be entertaining a motion to go into closed session. We'd ask you to step outside if you would, and then we'll have a closed session discussion about 329 Chestnut Street. Councilor Johnson?
Before we go into closed session,
Yes.
Mayor, I have something else I'd like to bring up.
Okay, please do.
I I just need to bring this up because I'm sure there's other folks that have got this. Last week, has nothing to do with you, so I got a delinquent bill from the utilities that I haven't started paying my loan off yet, but I have not received a bill, nor was it available to me online when I went to pay my last utility bill. So I'm hoping to get some information from the utilities and pass it along at the council meeting on Tuesday on how folks who may have gotten a delinquency notice on a bill they've never received, so how that can be rectified, and folks who have consistently and regularly paid online for the last 10 years don't get delinquency bills so that they can start paying their loan online. I was under the impression that everything was supposed to be rolled into one on the utility bill, and apparently that's not what's happening. So if there's other folks out there having that same frustration with the conversion loans, I'm hoping to get some answers and have some answers for next Tuesday. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Okay, we'll take care of that.
Yes, I'll get that information for next Tuesday.
Would you please? Yes, thank you. Okay, so now we're looking for a motion to go into closed session.
Also move, Mayor, that we go into closed session.
Okay, it's been moved by Counselor Bearable, supported by, was that Counselor Paulson? Okay, moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Okay, we'll be moving into closed session.
Maya and Julianne, I'll call you.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.